just seeing, geez, the reason I was able to stay sequestered in my home is because some black woman was able to stack the grocery shelf. And
I'm Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Good morning, folks, and welcome to Contemporary. My name is Jay Edgar. We've got a bunch of stuff to get to today. We had a bunch of stuff that's just breaking this morning, so hopefully we can keep up, and hopefully we can keep a good flow going on and do the show that I was intending to do right up until I started putting things together for this morning's show. But before we get into anything at all, head on over to freedomscoop.com. FreedomScoop.com is going to be your one-stop shop for all of your news and commentary needs. We carry great shows such as the Daily Ignoramus, Contemporary, the Freckles and Brit Show. We also carry the Breakdown with Birkenhoff, the Generational Gap, and the R-Rated Conservative. Come and check us out later on tonight when I will be hosting Chris Lokes, Harvey McLeod, and John from the Generational Gap as we go over the debate highlights for the night. We'll be going through, I will be live streaming it. That will be a D-Live exclusive, keep in mind. So come on over and hang out with us over on D-Live, check out the debates, and we will have a good conversation about what's going on with that. It's going to be a good one because, for the most part, I think everybody has accepted the fact that if Biden wins, Kamala is going to be president. So we're going to have to go sit down and see what her debate strategy is like. All right, let's get on into the stocks here, starting with the Dow chart, the Dow chart is incredible if you look at this here. It's incredibly obvious what happened yesterday. We went through, going through kind of a steady rise, going up into the 2800s. And, Trump said that he wasn't going to negotiate with the stimulus anymore, so they dropped off like a stone, almost instantly, to a point where, right down into the basement, right down into that 27,000 mark. So what happens in the government is going to have an effect on everything that we're seeing coming forward off of this, and you know it, and I know it, so let's see what the investors have to say about it. Starting with Investors Business Daily, archived because I tried to pull it before 7:30. Dow Jones Futures jumped 200 points on new Trump stimulus tweets. Apple's new iPhone set for reveal, from Scott Latonin. Dow Jones Futures rallied more than 200 points early Wednesday, while S&P 500 futures and NASDAQ 100 futures dropped. We're also slightly... Wow, I can read. We're also higher on new President Trump coronavirus stimulus tweets. Tech giant Apple announced the product event that will likely reveal a new iPhone next week. The tech-heavy NASDAQ fell 1.6% Tuesday. The S&P 500 lost 1.4%, while the Dow Jones Industrial Average dropped 1.3%, or 375 points. Among stock market leaders, Apple, Microsoft declined 2.9% and 2.1% respectively. Stocks in or near buy zones in the new stock market rally are Alibaba, Marvell Technologies, ServiceNow, Twilio, and Viva Systems. Alibaba, Microsoft, ServiceNow, Tesla, and Viva Systems are all IBD leaderboard stocks. Early Wednesday, Dow Jones Futures rose 0.95% versus fair value, while S&P 500 futures moved up 0.75%. NASDAQ 100 futures moved up 0.8% versus fair value. Remember, overnight action in Dow futures and elsewhere doesn't necessarily translate into actual trading in the next regular stock market session. So, I'm going to hold off on reading this one here because I've actually got a standalone article to go with that here, but I wanted to touch on something here from CNN to go along with what we were just talking about. Let me close a couple of these tabs here. Moving on from CNN, from Markets Now, Dow swings 600 points after Trump rejects the stimulus plan, from Anekin Tape. Stocks took a dive Tuesday afternoon after President Trump said he ordered an end to stimulus negotiations until after the election. The Dow Industrial swung more than 600 points following the announcement and closed down 1.3%, or 376 points. The S&P 500 tumbled 1.4%, and the NASDAQ Composite finished down 1.6%. I've instructed my representatives to stop negotiating until after the election, when, immediately after I win, we will pass a major stimulus bill that focuses on hardworking Americans and small business, Trump tweeted. The announcement comes just hours after the Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell once again called for more stimulus to keep the economic recovery going. He said the risk of doing too little in terms of the stimulus was far greater than the risk of doing too much. But the president disagrees. Our economy is doing very well. The stock market is at a record level. Jobs and unemployment also coming back in record numbers, he added on Twitter, his major platform for communication. The unemployment rate stood at 7.9% in September, down sharply from the crisis peak. That said, it's still the highest jobless rate on record going into a presidential election. The country still remains down 10.7 million jobs from February. The recovery has been a tale of two economies. For some, things have improved greatly since the economy has opened up again after the spring lockdown, but for millions of Americans, the economic situation is much more dire than ever before. Whole industries have been devastated by the virus. Yeah, that's that K-shaped thing that they keep telling us about. Trump's decision deals a major blow to those helping for more stimulus. I'm sorry. The allergies are kicking in, and I apologize for what's going on in my nose there right now, to help the country get through the crisis. For jobless Americans, it means they will have to make ends meet with less money at the start than at the start of the crisis. When the government provided $600 weekly supplement to boost benefits, these benefits ran out at the end of July. Trump signed an executive order last August, bolstering benefits by a weekly $300 by diverting money from the Federal Emergency Management Agency. FEMA said that some states have already exhausted their allocated amounts. States could opt to add another $100 a week, bringing it to $400. It's been a wild few weeks for investors between the president's COVID diagnosis, his hospitalization over the weekend, uncertainty surrounding the economic outlook, as well as the possibility of a contested election. All things that are going to weigh on the markets heavily going into this. And the markets are back up to where they just about were before the start of all this pandemic. But that still means that we have to look back and see what they think that the people are going to do coming out of the crisis and going back into their regular lives. So still a lot of things to look at and a lot of things to watch. Let's keep going now and talk about the news that both companies just talked about here. From the Associated Press, Trump halts COVID-19 relief talks until after the election. From Andrew Taylor and Amar Madhani. Give me 1 second here, folks. Sorry, I can't wait for winter because I couldn't go through the rest of the show like that. I could barely talk and it was bubbling up in there. But man, allergy season, once it's over, I'm going to be so excited for. Let's keep going here. Trump halts COVID-19 relief talks until after the election. President Donald Trump on Tuesday called an abrupt end to negotiations with Democrats over additional COVID-19 relief, delaying action until after the election, despite ominous warnings from his own Federal Reserve Chairman about deteriorating conditions in the economy. Trump tweeted that House Speaker Nancy Pelosi was not negotiating in good faith and said that she's asked Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell to direct all his focus before the election into confirming his U.S. Supreme Court nominee, Amy Coney Barrett. I have instructed my representatives to stop negotiating until after the election, when immediately after I win, we will pass a major stimulus bill that focuses on hardworking Americans and small businesses, Trump tweeted. Hours later, Trump appeared to edge back a bit from his call to end the negotiations. He took to Twitter again and called on Congress to send him a standalone bill for stimulus checks, a reference to a pre-election batch of direct payments to most Americans that had been a central piece of negotiations between Pelosi and the White House. Pelosi has generally rejected taking a piecemeal approach to COVID relief. I'm ready to sign right now. Are you listening, Nancy? Trump said in a flurry of tweets Tuesday evening. He also called on Congress to immediately approve $25 billion for airlines and $135 billion for the Paycheck Protection Program to help small businesses. The unexpected turn could be a blow to Trump's re-election prospects and comes as his administration and campaign are in turmoil. Trump is quarantining in the White House with a case of COVID-19, and the latest batch of opinion polls shows him significantly behind former Vice President Joe Biden with the election 4 weeks away. So, yeah, and this goes right on to say the collapse means that the Trump and down-ballot Republicans will face re-election without delivering aid to voters, such as the $1,200 direct payments or Trump checks to most individuals, even as the national jobless rate is about 8% with millions facing the threat of eviction. One endangered Republican, Maine Senator Susan Collins, said, "Waiting until after the election to reach an agreement on the next COVID-19 relief package is a huge mistake." Former Vice President Joe Biden slammed Trump's move. "Make no mistake, man, if you're out of work, man, your business is closed. If your child's school is shut down, you're seeing layoffs in your community. Donald Trump decided today that none of it matters to him," Biden said in a statement released by his campaign. Trump's move came immediately after he spoke with the top GOP leaders in Congress, who had been warily watching talks between Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin and Pelosi. Many Senate Republicans had signaled that they would not be willing to go along with any stimulus legislation that topped $1 trillion, and GOP aides had been privately dismissive of the prospects for a deal. Just on Saturday, tweeting from the Walter Reed National Military Medical Center, Trump said, "Our great USA wants and needs stimulus. Work together and get it done." But any Pelosi-sponsored agreement of close to $2 trillion raised the potential of a GOP revolt if it came to a vote. Yeah, they're going back and forth over this, and as I've mentioned numerous times on this program, Pelosi does seem like she is sitting here with the stimulus package and holding the American people hostage to get another round of pork that she has loaded into this. That's all that I've been seeing out of this. She keeps throwing the number, and I mean the number goes down $500 billion at a time if she wants to go try and come back to the table for something. But every bill that she's put out has had unconstitutional mandates for state elections, mail-in voting provisions, ends to tax cuts, ends to the state and local tax deductions. Everything that she's put out there has had massive pork into this. And Trump has brought up something very good. Bring out a single issue bill. Stop doing all of these situations where you're doing nothing but going right down and blanketing and putting your entire wish list in something that's going to directly affect the American people. That could be something that could really change the way we do things in this country. Just do single issue bills only. Single issue bills could save a lot of the republic. But they're still going to sit down and they're going to try and throw their pork in, because that's how they negotiate with each other, is what kind of pork they can get out of things. So without a constitutional amendment, I don't see single issue bills becoming the norm or the reality coming anywhere close to it. But we will see. And yes, absolutely, you saw the stocks drop when he said he wasn't going to do this anymore, because it's uncertainty for what people are going to be able to do and what people are going to be able to buy. So a lot of things going on with this, a lot of things happening. But let's move on, read it from Business Insider, and see what is in the counter to this. Trump calls on Congress in a late-night tweet storm to approve $1,200 direct payments and small business aid only hours after cutting off stimulus negotiations. From Joseph Zabalos Roig. Only hours after unexpectedly ending negotiations on another federal coronavirus rescue package, President Trump on Tuesday night urged Congress to pass standalone bills on direct payments and assistance to airlines and small businesses, all measures that would likely have been included in the larger piece of legislation that was being negotiated between the White House and Democrats. Major U.S. airlines are moving to lay off 32,000 workers in the coming weeks, and it has increased pressure on the administration to strike a deal with both Democrats and Republicans. In a series of late-night tweets, Trump called on both parties to support the provisions. The House and Senate should immediately approve $25 billion for airline payroll support and $135 billion for Paycheck Protection Program for small businesses. He wrote on Twitter, adding he would sign now. In another tweet he posted less than a half an hour later, Trump said that he was ready to sign a separate piece of legislation to provide $1,200 direct payments for the American taxpayers. The president tagged the White House Chief of Staff, Mark Meadows, House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy, Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, and Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer. Trump's tweets are a striking shift from earlier Tuesday. The president abruptly announced that he ordered Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin to cease negotiating with Pelosi on a federal aid package and said a large bill would come after the U.S. election. I've instructed my representatives to stop negotiating until after the election when, immediately after I win, we will pass a major stimulus bill that focuses on hard-working Americans and small business, Trump wrote on Twitter. The two sides were $700 billion apart in their aid proposals, with House Democrats recently passing $2.2 trillion in spending, a slimmed-down version of another plan they approved in May. Democrats have long insisted on a broad spending package to deal with every facet of the public health and economic crises the pandemic has caused. Pelosi and top Democrats have previously rejected Republican attempts to pass standalone bills during previous relief negotiations in late August, and ultimately that collapsed. So, a couple things going on with this, and I don't like the direct payments either. I think we just need to get the government out of the way and let people assess their own level of risk and decide whether or not they want to go out and function in the economy. You are going to see a lot of business open, and a lot of this jump back up if we just get the government out of the way. That's been the biggest problem in all of this, is the government is in the way of everything. But they're going to come out here and they are going to sit and screech about the fact that, oh, well, we want to just give away the American people. And that's going to be a huge campaign promise that comes along with this. That's all we're going to see is campaign. This is going to be campaign 101 coming out for these people. So I hate the fact that they're sitting around playing with people's livelihoods over a campaign issue in an election year. But you knew this was going to happen from the first time they said, from the first time Stick says, oh, hello everybody. Well, there's a new virus coming up out of China right now, and you should go stock up on stuff. You knew right from that moment that we were going to start seeing shit like this, bullshit like this coming up out of the government. But what are they going to do? They've already given the gives once, and now people want to take the gives again, and nobody will open their business back up for them. They want to go to the business, but nobody wants to open the business up for them. All right, so with that, Steve Mnuchin had to weigh in on this too, or Jerome Powell, not Steve Mnuchin. From CNBC, I got a pair of them right in a row. Fed Chair Powell calls for more help from Congress, says there's a low risk of overdoing it, from Jeff Cox. Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell called Tuesday for continued aggressive fiscal and monetary stimulus for an economic recovery that he said has to go a long way. Noting progress made in job creation, goods consumption, and business formation, among other areas, Powell said that now would be the wrong time for policymakers to take their foot off the gas. No, absolutely not. Just keep spending that money because the Fed will keep printing it, and that's what Jerome Powell does. Doing so, he said, could lead to a weak recovery, creating unnecessary hardship for households and businesses, and thwart a rebound that thus far has progressed more quickly than expected. By contrast, the risks of overdoing it seems for now to be smaller, Powell added in remarks to the National Association for Business Economics. Even if policy actions ultimately prove to be greater than needed, they will not go to waste. The recovery will be stronger and move faster if monetary policy and fiscal policy continue to work side by side to provide support to the economy until it clearly is out of the woods. The remarks come amid conflicting signs for an economy trying to shake off the unprecedented impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic. While 11.4 million jobs lost during the associated economic shutdown have been recovered, nearly half of displaced workers remain sidelined. GDP is expected to show a sharp rebound from the 31% second quarter plunge, and housing has been a strong point as well. However, Powell cautioned that backing off now with fiscal and monetary help runs the risk of losing momentum and bringing about an added downturn that would look not like the government-induced one that began in February, but rather a more traditional downturn that would be harder to recover from and worsen the U.S. wealth gap. That would be one where weakness feeds on weakness, he said. Give away more money, Jerome. You're the one who prints the money, Jerome. You're the one who has to be the responsible one for this, Jerome. So, yeah, everybody wants to get up and spend the money coming into this, and yeah, this is a campaign issue at this point. We are 4 weeks out from the election, and they just want something to come out and make advertisements for. 4 weeks from yesterday is when we're going to go out to the ballot box and vote, if you haven't mailed in your ballot already at this point. 4 weeks from today, 2 debates, plus a vice presidential debate. In 4 weeks. Goodness, folks. All right, another one here from CNBC. Trump reports no symptoms after first night back at the White House. Doctor says in memo from Kevin Breininger. President Trump reported no symptoms of the coronavirus Tuesday following his first night out of the hospital, the White House physician said. This morning, the president's team of physicians met with him in the residence, Dr. Sean Conley said in a brief, non-specific memo. The latest report on Trump's progress battling COVID-19. He had a restful first night at home, and today he reports no symptoms, Conley wrote. Trump's vital signs and physical exam remain stable, Conley wrote. Overall, he continues to do extremely well. And we've got a tweet here from the press secretary. A Tuesday afternoon update from President Trump's physician. This morning, the president's team of physicians met with him in the residence. He had a restful first night at home, and today he reports no symptoms. Vital signs and physical exam remain stable, with an ambulatory oxygen saturation of 95 to 97%. Overall, he continues to do extremely well. I will provide updates as we know more. Well, you know what? Nobody really knows what an oxygen saturation level is and what a good level is, so that's something to keep in mind off of this. The optimistic update from the White House doctor came less than a day after Trump, 74, was discharged from the Walter Reed National Military Medical Center, where he had been flown as a precautionary measure after began experiencing COVID-19 symptoms. The president had been hospitalized Friday evening, the same day he had announced on Twitter that he and the First Lady had tested positive for the virus. So he's home, he's looking good, he's not having symptoms, and he's tweeting up a storm. Whether it's for spending or for anything else that he wants to do. Let's keep going off of this one here. Yahoo reporter yells at sick president, "Do you think you might be a super spreader?" Imagine admitting you're the idiot that did this. From Joseph Curl. When President Trump, who spent 3 days at Walter Reed National Medical Center after being diagnosed with COVID-19, left the facility on Monday evening, the national media was there waiting. The White House had informed the press pool before Trump left the hospital that he would not be taking questions, but that didn't stop one reporter from yelling at the sick 74-year-old president. "Mr. President, how many of your staff are sick? Do you think you might be a super spreader, Mr. President?" Yahoo News reporter Hunter Walker shouted as Trump walked past the array of cameras flashing a thumbs up sign. I could hear what could be going through Trump's mind and what he could possibly say from this. "I'm a super spreader. I'm the best spreader. I'm the greatest spreader. Nobody spreads like I do." Walker later bragged on Twitter, "I asked President Trump how many of his staffers are sick and whether he's a super spreader. He ignored me and simply said, 'Thank you very much, everybody.'" The reaction was swift on social media. Journalism Today is yelling a question at the president, getting ignored, and then tweeting about it as if you've accomplished something, every last one of them, fighting for Twitter retweets over unanswered, ridiculous question. Wrote one person on Twitter. Steve Deese of Blaze TV was more succinct. I asked whether you're a super duper communist douchebag and you ignored me, but everyone else was like, thank you very much for pointing it out. Imagine admitting you're the idiot that did this, wrote another. Please do everyone a favor at Hunter W. and seek psychiatric assistance ASAP. Thank you for obliging us in that regard. Sincerely, sane folks, wrote another. Others, though, lauded Walker. We need more journalists like you to ask him the things too many are afraid to ask, wrote one person. Jesus, when is the last time a press reporter has been afraid to try and get a gotcha question up on Trump? In the press pool. When has been the last time some progressive has been shy on Twitter? Look through the president's comment section. People are afraid to ask. Fuck you. We have a First Amendment. And some of you abuse the privilege. But we do have a First Amendment in this country. Hunter, you're a real patriot and a voice for the American people. The dangers you've had to face covering this White House of horrors are real. I'm so glad that journalists like you are fighting the good fight from the inside. Ah! Wow, you can tell my allergies are kicking in. I was off key with the heavenly harmonics. I wonder if some of these people were just sock accounts for Hunter Walker, so it didn't look like he was getting ratioed so hard. I don't know. We will see. But yeah, let's keep going off of this one here. From WLBT3, speaking of people getting the luxury of questioning the president, which you can't do in some other countries around the world right now. Representative Thompson requests briefing from Secret Service after Trump's Sunday afternoon joyride. This is from Josh Carter. Representative Benny Thompson has requested a briefing from the Secret Service after what he called President Trump's joyride on Sunday afternoon. Yesterday, Trump surprised supporters who had gathered outside Walter Reed by riding by them in a black SUV with the windows rolled up. He could be seen wearing a mask while waving to the crowd and giving a thumbs up. Secret Service agents inside the vehicle were also in masks and other protective gear. A White House spokesman said the trip was cleared by a medical team and was deemed safe. Trump tweeted that if he didn't say thank you to his fans, the media would have called him rude. The media would say rude. Even still, the act came under scrutiny from the Washington Post reporting that doctors and nurses were left aghast by the drive-by. On Twitter, one Walter Reed physician called the brief trip insanity. Thompson labeled it a joyride that put the Secret Service, their families, and the public at risk of contracting the virus. He said the briefing he has called for is so we can know more about how these events have affected the Secret Service and national security. I've requested a briefing from the agency on the current safeguards in place for their employees, including on the President's protective detail, and how Secret Service agents can be kept safe from coronavirus-related threats, including apparently the President himself, Thompson wrote. So I've got a question here. Now, the President was at Air Force One. He was on Air Force One, apparently, which was how he contracted the virus, knowing that Hope Hicks was quarantined during the flight. But again, everything else, all the staffers and everybody else that was at the debate, were all on Air Force One. But we're not saying a word about the pilot or the attendants or anybody else that was on Air Force One and keeping them safe. The President went to Walter Reed on Marine One with the First Lady and Secret Service agents. And yet, nobody's saying a word about the safety of the pilot of Marine One or the Secret Service agents that were on Marine One. The First Lady obviously has the disease as well, but nobody's saying a word about those particular Secret Service agents. In fact, he got back on Marine One and went back home with the Secret Service detail and a pilot. And yet, nobody's saying a word about that pilot and those Secret Service agents. The only people that they're concerned about are the two Secret Service agents that were driving the Beast when Trump decided that he wanted to go out and wave to his fans. Do you notice the pattern here? Nobody's worried about anything except for people that are facilitating the president to reach out to the American people. Follow the money, folks. Follow the bouncing ball. All right, let's keep going here from ABC News, from my neck of the woods. Wisconsin's COVID-19 outbreak continues to grow. No, it doesn't. From Aaron Schumacher. Wisconsin recorded more coronavirus infections, logging 1,865 COVID-19 cases Sunday on the heels of a 5-day streak in which the state reported more than 2,000 cases each day, according to the Wisconsin Department of Health Services. In addition to rising case counts, the state's 7-day average for positive COVID-19 tests was above 9% on Friday, nearly double the rate that health experts recommended. A high positivity rate can be a sign that the state is only testing its sickest patients and failing to cast a net wide enough to accurately capture community transmission, according to Johns Hopkins University. The WHO recommends that the government get their positivity testing threshold below 5%. Following the spike in cases, Governor Evers, a skeleton, issued an emergency order and declared a public health emergency in the state on September 22nd, including a statewide mask mandate. Republican members of Congress have since filed a lawsuit attempting to block Evers' statewide mask mandate. And this is good. This is just exactly what we saw with Michigan as well. Evers is going to keep the emergency. Let me finish reading here before I get into my opinion on this. Wisconsin is in the midst of a pandemic that is growing at a near exponential rate, according to the governor's office. The governor also pointed the finger at college students who have returned to campus in person this fall. College and university students are driving the increase in cases, with the highest rate of new COVID-19 cases in 18 to 24-year-olds, according to the governor's office. I'm concerned about the alarming trends of COVID-19 we're seeing across our state, Evers said at a press conference last week. The longer it takes for everyone to take COVID-19 seriously, the longer this virus will linger. Experts consider deaths from COVID-19 to be a lagging indicator of the outbreak's severity, meaning that since deaths trail rising infections, positivity rates, and hospitalizations, death typically reflect long-term trends, not in-the-moment severity. As of Sunday, 1,377 people in Wisconsin have died of the virus, according to the health department. 1,377 people in the entire state of a few million people have died whilst we're going through and having 2,000 people a day test positive for the virus. The math doesn't seem too alarming to me. I don't know if it seems alarming to you. It doesn't seem all that alarming to me. I mean, do I have to start wearing the mask at home? Do I have to sit and cower in the bunker and never ever leave the house again? What do I have to do here? But yeah, that's what we're seeing off of this. And in all honesty, Evers has put a new order in place as of yesterday. And it's supposed to go until November 7th. So he's not doing the nice big long 60-day ones he's been doing, but the health emergency is in order until November 7th, which means he is keeping the state locked down until we go out and vote the right way. Follow the bouncing ball. And you think that this shit isn't going to disappear after the election. For the first time, he's made an order that wasn't 60 days long, and you think that this is not about the election. Let's keep going here from Click on Detroit. More COVID-19 orders will be issued for Michigan in coming hours and days, Governor Whitmer believes. There it is. Derek Hutchinson is the senior web producer for this. This is from Lansing, Michigan. More coronavirus orders in the state of Michigan will be issued in the coming hours and days, Governor Whitmer believes. Whitmer expressed her support for the guidelines issued Monday by the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services, just days after the Michigan Supreme Court struck down the governor's emergency orders. MDHHS issued regulations regarding mass gatherings in some businesses across the state. We are aligned, and I'm very pleased with the action MDHHS is taking, Whitmer said. I would anticipate more. The state Supreme Court sided with the Republican-led legislature on Friday, ruling that the 1945 law, through which Whitmer went above the heads of lawmakers to issue executive orders, is unconstitutional, which, as I mentioned yesterday, is great because they're sitting and figuring out that the orders and the laws in place that give these tyrants the ability to make another order until after the election is unconstitutional, completely circumventing the Fourth Amendment and the First Amendment in some places, which is good. That's a good thing. A series of counties issued their own rules following the announcements, but then MDHHS's announcement on Monday put back into effect some of Whitmer's previous safety rules. Whitmer said there's more to come. The Department of HHS, the director, Robert Gordon, have epidemic powers that he's using. I would anticipate more orders even yet today, perhaps, or in the coming days, Whitmer said. He can extend those, and I fully anticipate, until we have some comfort, that we've gotten our arms around this disease, and they will be extended. So, in spite of the fact that their Supreme Court in that state has said, no, you shall not, you are not a tyrant, you are not a dictator, Gretchen Whitmer is continuing to try and be a dictator. And you'll notice this, that all of this that we're seeing is coming from these big, deep blue states that haven't been red in a generation, in my lifetime. California, Illinois, Michigan. They're all going out and they're giving these draconian lockdown orders over and over and over again. And people like Kristi Noem are just saying, you know what? Stay 6 feet apart from each other, but I'm not going to enforce it. And South Dakota actually apparently did fairly well on all this. So, let's keep going here. Speaking of Gretchen Whitmer. From 12 News out of Flint. Whitmer's administration reissues the Michigan mask order gathering limits under new authority. From the ABC 12 News staff. The Whitmer administration turned to different laws Monday for authority to reissue some statewide mandates to prevent the spread of coronavirus in Michigan. Just keep going until every one of your powers is deemed unconstitutional and you actually have a legislatively led state once again. Just keep going, Gretchen. Just keep going. The Michigan Department of HHS issued an emergency order restricting gathering sizes, requiring a mask or face covering in public spaces, and limiting indoor service for bars and taverns. After the Michigan Supreme Court ruled on Friday that Whitmer lacks the authority to issue unilateral, statewide orders under the 1945 Emergency Power Acts of the governor, her administration instead looked to laws passed in reaction to the 1918 Spanish flu pandemic for authority. The law used as the basis for Monday's orders were not affected by Friday's Supreme Court ruling. When it comes to fighting COVID-19, we're all in this together. We need Michiganders everywhere to do their part by wearing masks and practicing safe social distancing so we can keep our schools and small businesses open and protect the brave men and women serving on the front lines of the crisis, said Whitmer. I don't know. Like I said, it is time for Whitmer to come back, to rein it back in, and accept the L before she's blackballed from the state entirely. Which is coming, I think. Because she keeps doing stuff like this over and over again. She can't relax. And Evers is doing the same thing. Well, I have to be more of a tyrant than Whitmer, otherwise the progressives won't vote for me. Because I'm a union puppet, I'm not a progressive puppet. So, those of you in Michigan, stay safe. I hope it doesn't get too bad for you as they're fighting over things, but for the most part, I hope the government defaults and you get to be free from government for a little while. Let's keep going here. I've got another one from CNBC. Biden defines $400,000 a year as wealthy. Here's what that buys in a big city, from Robert Frank. Democratic presidential candidate Joe Biden says his tax hikes would only affect the wealthy, defining that as those who make $400,000 a year. But according to a financial planning analysis, families making $400,000 a year aren't exactly living large, especially in major cities. A family of four with $400,000 a year in income is likely to drive a Toyota and take staycations than drive a Lambo and fly first class. By national measures, those making $400,000 or more in income belong to a rarefied group. They represent the top 1.8% of taxpayers, earning about 25% of the nation's income. The $400,000 cutoff is also higher than the $250,000 income threshold proposed by President Obama back in 2008 when he sought to raise taxes on the wealthy. Since Biden's plan is largely a marginal tax increase, taxpayers will only see tax hikes on income above $400,000. So those making slightly more than $400,000 will see small increase, while the bulk of the $4 trillion in added revenue from Biden's plan would come from super earners making more than $1 million, according to the Tax Policy Center. People making between $400,000 and $700,000 are going to have a tax increase of only about 1% or less, said Seth Hanlon, senior fellow at the Center for American Progress, a left-leaning think tank. The tax plan is really aimed at the very top, the top 1% or 0.1%. The household income of $400,000 a year is well off by any measure, but with Biden saying they can afford to pay a little more. It's nearly 6 times the median income of the U.S. Even in high-cost hubs like New York or San Francisco, it's nearly more than 2 or 3 times the median income. Yet while $400,000 may provide a luxurious life in West Virginia or Alabama, it provides a less lavish lifestyle in the big U.S. cities, experts say. The soaring costs of housing, education, and childcare can quickly absorb the after-tax income on a $400,000 a year family. So, first and foremost, the families that make $400,000 a year are idiots. Bezos only makes like $100,000 a year in his personal taxes. Yes, he could go back and he could take the capital gains hit and sell off a whole bunch of stuff if he needed to come up with cash for something. But he only gives himself like $100,000 a year paid out of Amazon. So guess who that wouldn't be hitting? He goes back and he puts everything else back into his business. This $400,000 a year thing, this is not going to hit the billionaires as you keep trying to say it is. It is going to hit middle class people, and it's not going to be substantial in any of this. Top earners are going to put their money back into their business. So they stay under that $400,000 a year threshold. You don't know how taxes work, people, and yet you keep trying to make tax law. And then put the loopholes in there so people can turn around and take advantage of the tax law. So your buddies like Bezos, who owns Amazon, along with, or not just Amazon, but the Washington Post, who does nothing but write glowing reviews of you in the Washington Post. He's not going to pay a marginal tax rate. Bill Gates, you think he's going to pay a marginal tax rate? No. None of that's going to happen. But this is just another way that they can kneel down and pander and say that they're going to raise taxes, and you don't pay attention to it until you get back out there and file your taxes and realizes that your refund wasn't as big as you thought it was, in spite of the fact that you have no idea what you paid in taxes. By the way, has anybody noticed that whole story for the New York Times tax returns disappeared when people started realizing what they pay in taxes individually? Has anybody other than me noticed that? Because that story just is gone. Swallowed up by the fact that the president got the coronavirus. People started talking about what they pay in taxes, and all of a sudden, we don't want to talk about that anymore. All right, let's keep going from this. From CBS News, Biden pledged to make Roe v. Wade the law of the land. Abortion rights supporters want more. From Kate Smith. Of course they do. Because you go out and you solve one problem, and you can't run on it anymore, and the people want more and more and more. If you give a mouse a cookie. From Kate Smith. Former Vice President Joe Biden pledged his support for legal abortion on Monday evening, promising to make Roe v. Wade the law of the land if he's elected president. But abortion rights supporters say a promise to protect Roe isn't enough to ensure access to the procedure. During a town hall on Monday, an audience member asked Biden if his particular plan to protect women's reproductive rights in the U.S. given the likely confirmation of conservative Amy Coney Barrett to the Supreme Court. Number one, we don't know exactly what she'll do, although the expectation is that she may very well overrule Roe because she has unilateral control over the Supreme Court. As soon as Amy Coney Barrett is nominated in, I don't know if you guys know this or not, but that's what the progressive media is trying to tell you right now, but as soon as ACB is nominated in, she has unilateral, full control over the court. Nobody else, none of the other justices matter. Kavanaugh's gone, Gorsuch is gone. It's going to be Amy Coney Barrett is the unilateral voice of the court. Hope you guys know that. And the only responsible response to that would be to pass legislation to make Roe the law of the land, Biden said. That's what I would do. President Trump responded Tuesday morning on Twitter, writing, "Wow, Joe Biden just took a more liberal position on Roe than Elizabeth Warren at her highest." But the abortion rights supporters say that Biden's position, likely a reference to codifying the Supreme Court decision into law, is baseline for the Democrat Party. To be sure, every major Democrat candidate for president made the same promise on the campaign trail, and most, including Biden's running mate Senator Kamala Harris, went several steps further, offering voters specific plans to expand abortion access. And, honestly, I'm pretty sure that a law like this would also be struck down by the Supreme Court. And I don't know how much further you go for this. I don't know if this is just, if you pay for it at this point, if Joe Biden is going to be the one going out starting to perform abortions, if Kamala Harris starts doing forced sterilization to Trump supporters. I don't know what goes further than making Roe versus Wade the law of the land, even though that would be severely unconstitutional as much as any other law that's out there that these people pass that's severely unconstitutional. I do have to ask this. What part of foreign diplomacy and interstate commerce does Roe versus Wade fall under? I need to understand this. But that's what we're seeing up off of this. Said this is going to be what we're going to be preaching coming into the election. Let's keep going here from CBS 21. Pennsylvania election judge accused of tampering with ballots during primary election, from Jamie Stover. Come on, go away. There we go. An elections judge in Pennsylvania is accused of tampering with ballots during the primary this summer. Questions about election protocol during the summer primary were first raised by Democratic candidate Enid Santiago, who is challenging incumbent state rep Peter Schweier in the 22nd district. Santiago raised those concerns to the county election board. A board recommended the district attorney investigate after county judge Erica Bickford admitted to darkening ballot bubbles and trimming ballots so they couldn't be read by the machines. If you put a pen to a ballot in the position as she holds as a judge of elections, you've committed a violation of the election code. It's fairly clear, said Lehigh County District Attorney Jim Martin. Officials say there's no evidence any of the votes were changed. She confessed to it. I had to go back and read that again to make sure that was what it said there, but she confessed to it. So it doesn't matter if there's any evidence if any ballot was changed. She confessed to it. And you guys still believe that mail-in voting is going to be the be-all, end-all, save-all for everything. County Executive Phil Armstrong, who is also on the election board, says Bickford is an elected official and has been charged but not found guilty. She can still keep her position, meaning she can work the polling place on November 3rd. We're just going to have an extra set of eyes in that area to make sure everything is followed correctly, said Armstrong. And people trust this. People trust this process, in spite of the fact that they're coming out and admitting that they're doing this. They're coming out and confessing that they're doing this, and nobody cares. Nobody cares to do anything. Nobody cares to change anything. If I was in that county, yes, she's an elected official, but if I was in that county, I would put a stay in place that person could not sit and work the ballots, because that person is on the record admitting that she's tampering with the election. And yet, in Pennsylvania, it's just do, business as usual. I want custody of my ballot until it leaves my hand and goes into the machine. After that, I can't do anything about it, but once it leaves my hand and goes into the machine, I want custody of that thing. I don't want it to go through another election official. I don't want it to go through a mail carrier. I don't want it to go through anybody. That thing is in my hands until I drop it in the Scantron. And that's it. They're not even trying to hide it anymore. All right, let's keep going here. I got just a few more. I got quite a few more, actually. Video shows NYPD forcefully dispersing Jews on streets celebrating Sukkot. From Ayla Slesko. Oh, great. I'm going to have to listen to Shapiro talk really fast about this. You know, gang, it's Bill de Blasio. He's an anti-Semite. I know anti-Semitism, okay? I was the number one target of anti-Semitism and white supremacy attacks. In 2016, I was the number one target. So, yeah, I know what all about this is, and this is pre-Nazi Germany all over again. And all of a sudden, we're all going to be marched into camps, and that's what it's going to be, folks, gang. All right. All right, let's see what Ayla Slisko has to say. Orthodox Jews who gathered in close proximity for a street party celebrating a religious holiday refused to comply with orders to disperse by officers from the New York City Police Department, NYPD. Videos appear on social media showing NYPD attempting to move the crowd on Monday night, who are largely failing to wear masks or observe any kind of social distancing. Among the COVID-19 pandemic, the crowd was celebrating Sukkot, which began last Friday and ends this Friday. The crowd gathered in the Brooklyn neighborhood of Crown Heights, resisted, and NYPD ultimately failed to disperse the crowd, with no arrests being made and no fines issued. The incident happened the same day that New York Governor Andrew Cuomo announced new restrictions in response to a fresh surge of COVID-19 cases, which many affected areas having particularly large populations of Orthodox Jews. Analysis points out de Blasio is literally rounding up the Jews. Orthodox Jewish gatherings are often very, very large, and we've seen what one person can do in a group, Cuomo said during a Monday news conference, referring to an Orthodox Jewish man believed to be a super spreader. You know, I'm also going to be really happy when I don't have to say those two fucking words together. Super spreader and social distancing. I don't want to say any of those words together anymore. Responsible for hundreds of infections. Mass gatherings are the super spreader events, Cuomo continued. We know there have been mass gatherings going on in concert with religious institutions in these communities for weeks, and I'm talking about you're only supposed to have 50 outdoors, but like they had 1,000, and you don't see masks and you don't see a clear violation of social distancing. You know what? Let's look at the video of this. Because Brady Leonard was very, very kind to put this out there where we could see it. Yeah, at what point do you admit that you've just lost control and let it go? Because I'm pretty sure that they're at this point, at that point. Just take the L, go back and tell de Blasio to suck it, and go out dancing with the Jewish guys. That's what I would do. At that point, just go hang out with them. But, yeah. And of course, it's because it's a religious institution. Now, if they were out there throwing a brick or a Molotov or holding a sign or raising their fist in the air, there'd be no problem. There'd be not one problem. But it's religious, so let's get right on into this. Let's keep going. Some Orthodox Jews bristle at New York City's response to the virus surge, from David Crary and Miriam Pham. Amid a new surge of COVID-19 in New York's Orthodox Jewish communities, many members are reviving health measures that some have abandoned over the summer: social distancing, wearing masks. For many, there is also a return of anger. They feel the city is singling them out for criticism. The latest blow in order Monday from Governor Andrew Cuomo, temporarily closing public and private schools in several areas with large Orthodox populations. It will take effect on Tuesday. People are very turned off and burnt out, said Yosef Hirschkop, a Hasidic Jew from Brooklyn, who works for a chain of urgent care centers. It's not like we're the only people in New York getting COVID. Over the past few weeks, top government officials, including Cuomo and Mayor Bill de Blasio, have been sounding the alarm about localized upticks in COVID-19 after several months in which the state had one of the nation's lowest infection rates. Officials say the worst hit zip codes overlap with large Orthodox Jewish communities in the boroughs of Brooklyn and Queens and in a couple of nearby counties. The goal is to head off a feared second wave of infections months after the city beat back an outbreak that killed more than 24,000 New Yorkers. Under the shutdown plan submitted to Cuomo by the mayor, 100 schools and 200 private schools would be closed in 9 areas that are home to close to 500,000 people. Those areas represent 7% of the city's population, but have been responsible for about 1,850 new cases in the past 4 weeks, more than 20% of all the new infections in the city during that span. De Blasio had proposed the shutdown on Sunday, the second day of the Jewish holiday Sukkot, when Orthodox Jews would not be using telephones or computers and thus wouldn't have heard the news until sundown. So, yeah, they're looking back at this too, and I mean, with the fact that they've been singled out so many times through history for so many things, yeah, I'd probably be a little bit nervous too at this point. So, we will see what happens with that. Let's keep going. From Fox News, there's another little bombshell that's going off and just breaking right now. DNI classifies as... I must be just about to the hour mark because I'm starting to get a little bit mush-mouthed here. DNI declassifies Brennan notes CIA memo on Hillary Clinton stirring up scandal between Trump and Russia. From Brooks Singman. Director of National Intelligence John Ratcliffe on Tuesday declassified documents that revealed former CIA Director John Brennan briefed former President Obama on Hillary Clinton's purported plan to tie then-candidate Donald Trump to Russia as a means of distracting the public from her use of the private email server. Ahead of the 2016 presidential election, Fox News has learned. Ratcliffe declassified Brennan's handwritten notes, which were taken after he briefed Obama on the intelligence the CIA received, and the CIA memo, which revealed that officials referred the matter to the FBI for potential investigative action. The Office of the Director of National Intelligence transmitted the declassified documents to the House and Senate Intelligence Committees on Tuesday afternoon. Today, at the direction of the President, I have declassified additional documents relevant to the ongoing congressional oversight and investigative activities, Ratcliffe said in a statement to Fox News on Tuesday. A source familiar with the documents explained that Brennan's handwritten notes were taken after briefing Obama on the matter. We're getting additional insight into Russian activities from redacted Brennan notes. Read, cite summarizing alleged approved by Hillary Clinton, a proposal from one of her foreign policy advisors to vilify Donald Trump by stirring up a scandal, claiming interference by Russian security forces. Brennan notes read. The notes state on 28th of July in the margin, Brennan writes POTUS, but that section of the note is redacted. Any evidence of collaboration between Trump campaign and Russia, the notes read. The remainder of the notes are redacted except in the margins, which reads JC, Dennis, and Susan. The notes don't spell out the full names, but JC could be referring to then FBI Director James Comey. Susan could be NSI Director Susan Rice, and Dennis could refer to Obama Chief of Staff Dennis McDonough. Yeah, there's way more going on to this than they've been trying to allow you to believe for the entirety of this thing. Obama knew. There's no way he didn't know. There is no way right now that Obama didn't know what was going on with this. So, But once again, we will see what happens and what the investigation comes out. And once again, innocent until proven guilty. But I can't see any way at this point that he didn't know. All right. Next one here from the Daily Wire. Former staff hijacks Democrat Katie Hill's government Twitter account. Accuses her of abuse. Not a hero for women. From Daily Wire News. Someone claiming to be a former staff of former Representative Katie Hill posted messages to her official government Twitter account to accuse her of abuse after news broke this week that actress Elizabeth Moss would star as Hill in a TV series highlighting her rise and fall in politics. She was a representative for exactly 2 seconds. How are they going to make a TV series about this? The movie is based on Hill's forthcoming book, which recounts her experience. Oh, Kate, it's a movie now. It's based on Hill's forthcoming book, which recounts her experience as a young woman with no prior political experience, whose charm and common sense won over the people in her district and thrust her into the halls of power in Washington. Why is Washington power? Why is Washington power, folks? That is the biggest problem we have in this country, is people looking to Washington for leadership. That's the problem here. Variety reported, while her brash confidence won her powerful allies and infuriated her enemies, it was privately concealing a cycle of domestic abuse she was trapped in at home, infamously culminating in the release of intimate photos and the revelation of her own admitted personal mistakes that would eventually result in her stunning fall from grace. No, that is not what happened from this. Katie Hill was banging the staff, and I can't prove this, once again, jury of 12, but I am pretty positive at this point that Katie Hill went back and told her husband, hey, I'll get you a pretty sweet deal and get you some cash if you just release these photos and let me tell everybody that you beat the shit out of me. At which Nancy Pelosi walked up behind Hill and says, you're going to resign or I'm going to make your life a living hell. None of this was an abused victim complex woman. But she's going to keep trying to play the victim card, and not only that, Netflix is going to try and capitalize on it. But capitalism is evil. Alright, let's keep going here. From KMOV4. McCloskey's indicted. Grand jury adds charges of tampering with evidence from Lauren Traeger. A grand jury indicted Mark and Patricia McCloskey Tuesday on charges of exhibiting guns at protesters in June incident in their neighborhood and added a charge of tampering with evidence for both members of the couple. Their attorney, Joel Schwartz, said he wasn't surprised by the indictment, saying the grand jury didn't have all the facts. Once all the facts are out, it will be clear the McCloskeys committed no crime whatsoever, Schwartz said. Frankly, because the grand jury is not an adversarial process and defense counsel are not allowed in there, and I have no idea what was stated to the grand jury and what law was given to the grand jury. Mark and Patricia McCloskey had previously been charged with felony counts of exhibiting weapons for pointing guns at protesters outside of their central West End home. They have long maintained that they were protecting themselves and their property from people hurling threats. The grand jury also added a count for each of them of tampering. This, News 4 learns, stems from a pistol held by Patricia McCloskey and later turned over to police by attorney Al Watkins. That gun, Watkins said, had been rendered inoperable, but a report obtained by News 4 from St. Louis Police Crime Lab showed that the prosecutor had instructed the examiners to reassemble it correctly. The McCloskeys were in court early Tuesday before the grand jury and rendered their decision. Afterward, Mark McCloskey expressed frustration with the fact that no protesters were charged in the incident. They broke down our gate, they trespassed on our property. Not a single one of those people are now charged with anything, Mark McCloskey stated. We're charged with felonies that could cost us 4 years of our lives and our law licenses. McCloskey said the decision not to prosecute the trespassers shows the government has chosen to protect criminals and honest citizens. It also shows, by the way, that there's an aggressive DA in St. Louis that is trying to make her name for herself in an election year. And honestly, at this point, the McCloskeys didn't tamper with the evidence. The prosecution did. The examiners did, the detectives, reassembling the gun so it could fire correctly. They were the ones that tampered with evidence, not the McCloskeys. The rule of law is going away, people. And the rule of the mob is coming. Alright, I got 2 more here. We'll do something I'm thankful for, and we'll head on out of here. McCloskeys respond to being indicted after defending home. This is an attempt to intimidate people. From the Daily Wire News. Mark and Patricia McCloskey, the St. Louis couple that defended their home over the summer from a large group of marching demonstrators, reacted on Tuesday night to being indicted earlier in the day, telling Fox News host Sean Hannity that this was an attempt by this Soros-funded prosecutor to intimidate the people. Criminal defense attorney Jonathan Turley responded to the indictment by writing, "As predicted, the prosecutors used vague language in the state law to charge the McCloskeys. However, as a criminal defense attorney, I view these charges as legally dubious, and I highly challenge them, given countervailing rights under Missouri law." The McCloskeys, who were indicted on weapons and evidence tampering charges stemming from the June incident, appeared on Fox News late last night where they responded to the latest development. Mark McCloskey noted that the angry demonstrators blew past 3 no trespassing signs, broke through an iron gate, and threatened us with murder, with rape, with arson, with burning our house down, taking over our house, and even killing our dog. You know, it's just an attempt by the Soros-funded prosecutor to intimidate people, to warn people out there that if you stand up for yourself, exercise your Second Amendment rights, we are going to punish you, not the mob, not the criminals, but we're going to punish you, law-abiding citizens, for trying to defend yourselves. When asked what the deal was with the evidence tampering charges, Mark McCloskey said that he could not comment on it because he has not even seen the charging documents. So, the response is out there. I have no idea what's in the documents, but the response is out there for them to come and figure out what it is that they want to do. And yes, they are being persecuted for the fact that they sat down and defended themselves. Absolutely, that's 100% correct. The people that broke the laws are going free, and the people that went out to try and defend themselves are being charged for defending themselves. We're seeing it all over the place. Rittenhouse is being charged with murder for defending himself. Sandman got a major settlement for defending himself, and the mainstream media is trying to smear the hell out of him for it. If you stand up for yourself, you are the bad guy in this world. Alright, I've got one last one here, and then we'll do something I'm thankful for and head on out of here. From Newsweek. This came to me from Seawall over in the Discord chat. If you're not in the Discord, hit the link that's in the description below on all platforms and join the Discord. Throw the articles in, and if I can find them and green check verify them, I will put them in the show. Netflix indicted in Texas over Cuties movies, prurient interest in sex. From Janice Williams. Netflix's troubles regarding the French-Senegalese film Cuties isn't quite over. The streaming giant was hit with an indictment in Texas over the movie's alleged promotion of the sexual exploitation of minors. Representative Matt Schaefer shared the indictment Tuesday on Twitter. Netflix Incorporated, indicted by the grand jury in Tyler County, Texas, for promoting material in Cuties film which depicts lewd exhibition of pubic area of a clothed or partially clothed child who is younger than 18 years of age, which appeals to the prurient interest in sex. That is a legalese mouthful. But, yep, there's the document, there's the indictment. A Netflix spokesperson responded to the indictment in a statement to Newsweek. Cuties is a social commentary against the sexualization of young children. This charge is without merit, and we stand by the film. The film, directed by Sundance winner Maimouna Ducour, follows an 11-year-old Senegalese immigrant named Amy living in Paris who is an adolescent or joins an adolescent dance group, the Cuties, in her attempt to determine her identity in her new world. A coming-of-age journey of sorts, Amy essentially emulates the sexualized behavior typically portrayed by women in Western countries as a means to fit in and performs dance routines with her peers that imitate the older, sexually uninhibited women they are trying to emulate. The indictment against Netflix comes following outrage over the film's release in September. Hundreds of critics called out the film's sexualization of young girls in various scenes throughout the movie, particularly ones they copy in which they copy an older dance group's sexual moves, and another in which one 11-year-old member of the dance troupe takes photos of her genitals, although no nudity is actually showcased. Along with a petition to cancel Netflix, a dozen congressmen, particularly Republican members of the House and Senate, have criticized the platform, including some members who have even requested for the Department of Justice to prosecute Netflix for its release of the film. 33 members of the House signed Representative Jim Banks' letter recommending the department bring charges against Netflix Incorporated for the distribution of the film Cuties, which contains child pornography. And I don't know what's going to happen off of this. Of course, it's foreign, but the distribution could be a thing. Netflix has probably got every one of their lawyers coming out here getting ready to strike this down and hammer this as hard as they can, but we will see what happens with this. I haven't seen the movie, but I know a lot of people have, and they do say that it is worse than we ever could have expected. And in all honesty, this is what laws are there for. Not people with a victimless crime going out and doing a joint in the middle of his bathroom. For the exploitation of minors. That's what the law is out there for. And that's why I can't sit here and say ACAB as much as many of my libertarian counterparts try to do the same. So, that's coming up out of this. The problem that I've had with this from the beginning is the fact that they market this as a coming-of-age movie, which means that it's going to be targeted for children. People who are in that 11-year-old age group. And yes, of course, it comes to the end, and they see Amy dressing up in her very, very modest button-up shirt, very traditional, because she got overpowered by the sexual influence. But that doesn't change the fact that they're out there showing these extremely sexually explicit moves and other events that went on in the movie. And a coming-of-age movie is not going to be rated TVMA. That's the big thing, is that a coming-of-age movie, there's no reason for that to have that level of rating. And like I mentioned before, when I was talking to Robert, when I was on the Generational Gap, when we were talking about this, he was all in on this because it's a coming-of-age movie, and everything is going to be fine about it. I don't see what the problem is. Well, the problem is that they're using minors to do this. If they used adults for this, even 16, 17-year-olds, to emulate or pretend to be 11, I don't think there would have been as big of a problem with this, but they're actually using 11-year-old girls. I would love to see what Interpol has to say about this for the fact that it got out and distributed worldwide. I would love to see Interpol weigh in on this, because they do represent a lot of traditional countries as well as the more liberal ones over in Europe. So I would love to see what they have to say about this. But for now, we'll have to wait and see what Texas has to say about it. And that's going to be it for the news. So the last thing that we do on Wednesday is something that I'm thankful for. And I'm looking around myself right now. I went on ZipRecruiter before I switched locations for my job. And now that I'm going out looking to go into an entirely different field, I haven't really been paying that much attention to the ZipRecruiter app, but it is going off crazier and crazier and crazier at this point. Everybody's looking for things. In spite of the fact that Evers is locking down another order, that he's going to throw us on in 25% capacity and all the other stupid stuff he's going to try and do to destroy the Wisconsin economy. The Wisconsin economy is booming right now. People are hiring left and right. People want people to go to work for them. Restaurants are opening back up. New restaurants are popping up. I'm getting flyers and mailers here and there. For new places, delivery options are there. East Street is begging for workers and people to drive for them. Grubhub is begging for people to come out and drive for them. Wisconsin's economy is booming, and I'm thankful for that because that's going to draw people in from out of state after Illinois, Minnesota, Michigan starts expelling people out. After they start pushing people out, people are going to start flocking to this area because no matter what Evers tries to throw at my state, the economy stays pumping along. And I'm thankful for that. I'm thankful that I came back here because if I'd have stayed living in Mass, oh my God, it wouldn't have been like this. I can tell you that. That's why we're looking at things like the already conservative trying to get out of Mass. Or if I'd have gone to move it to Illinois for whatever reason because I couldn't find work in Wisconsin. Under the Obama years where, well, we had a great economic recovery under Barack and I. You didn't. I know. Because I was in the workforce at the time. You didn't have a great economic recovery. So, I am thankful for the fact that while other states are suffering and shutting down and people are still wondering whether or not they're going to be able to pay their rent or get evicted or anything, I live in Wisconsin. And we're not having any troubles in that area at all. And even if, for whatever reason, my job had to get shut down, even if that were to happen, I would be okay and I'd probably be working the next day. And I'm thankful for that. A good skill set and an open job market. That's what I'm thankful for. We will be back here later on tonight, where on this channel I will be hosting John from the Generational Gap, Chris Lokes, and Harvey McLeod as we go over and watch what's going on with the vice presidential debate. I hope to see you there. I hope to hang out with you guys, and I know we'll be, for the most part, streaming this. This will be a DLive exclusive, by the way. There will be no YouTube on this because YouTube will shut it down immediately. I might do Twitch as well, but DLive and Twitch for sure. And possibly Periscope. Come and hang out with us and see what we've got going on. Have the conversation with us. We will be reading live chat as we go along. Put your thoughts in. We'll probably do some polls and some other stuff along with that. It's going to be a lot of fun. I hope to see you guys there. Until then, or tomorrow, when we have more news and more contemporary. Until then, I'm Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Take care.